Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this Blitz test postmortem, a postmortem of my Blitz game number 464. My opponent played e4 here, and I played e5, getting into a classical setup. Knight f3 attacking the pawn, knight c6 defending, and bishop b5 attacking the knight. And I play a6 in Morphy defense, and instead of retreating the bishop, bishop to a4 is the most common move. He took the bishop, and I take back. So this is the exchange variation, and it was out of favor for a long time, but then Bobby Fischer showed that actually white could use it as an interesting weapon to get some pressure, and his idea was to castle and play d4 quickly. Notice that grabbing the pawn is a common beginner mistake, I guess. It doesn't actually win a pawn. Queen d4 forces the knight to move back. The knight can go to, it's probably better to go to g4 than f3. Knight f3 is in the book, but knight g4, and then you get the pawn with a check, and then the knight can come here to block. And white can play this position, but you can see that white has already given away the opening advantage, and black has a slight advantage. So anyway, no one plays that way, usually. Usually you don't see that. Every now and then. I actually did see that once. Okay, so my opponent castled here. That's the main line, and then now at this point you really do have to defend the e-pawn. And there's different ways to defend. I played bishop d6 for a while here in this position. Looks like you can play bishop g4 pinning. The top choice is actually f6, a kind of a funny looking move, but a lot of times you end up playing f6 anyway, even after some of these other moves, because there's no other pawn that can support the e-pawn except for the f-pawn. And at the moment the knight's in the way, so the queen is not coming out to give it a check. So f6 is the main line here. I played queen d6. This is the way I usually play it. d4. Now he can start this knight maneuver immediately. The knight has a good post on c4 usually, hitting the queen and keeping some pressure on these queenside pawns, which white wants to sort of keep these extra pawns on the queenside under control. Just d3 is kind of a solid, quiet way to play, but d4 I think is the main move here, in spite of the fact that it was the third choice in the database. This is what I always see. So I take, and then normally knight takes is played here. Queen takes doesn't lead to a whole lot. You can see that white's advantage isn't so great, but knight takes d4, and white has a little something. So that's the main move. e5 was a novelty, and we're just out of the opening book. And I guess the most accurate way to respond is queen over to g6. I honestly didn't think of that move. It's a sideways move, but it puts a little pressure on the c-pawn over here, as well as pinning the pinning the f or g-pawn rather, and maybe you get some pressure against the knight at some point. So interesting way to play. I played queen d5, which is not too bad either. That keeps the game in the range of about even. And after knight takes d4, I didn't. Originally I thought I was going to take here, but then I realized, of course, he's got this skewer. So I played bishop c5, putting a little pressure on his knight. He just defends it. And now I play knight to e7, blocking the e-file, so I actually can take his e-pawn if he doesn't defend it. So he went bishop to g5 here, and I castled. I still didn't like the idea of taking, and then he gets a rook with tempo on the on the knight here, and makes it difficult for me to castle. He has two people attacking it, and I've got two defenders at the moment, the king and the bishop, but after I castle, just the bishop. So that would be awkward. So I just castled here. Looks like knight to g6 was a playable move as well. And now he plays bishop takes e7. Okay. Bringing the bishop back. And rook to e1. Finally, after those exchanges, defending the pawn. But you see that I got quite a decent position out of the opening, and so that was just not the best play from white. There's better ways of playing the exchange variation, and you can in fact get some kind of opening edge if you play it right. Okay, I just went with b6 here. Let's see, rook to d8 is interesting, I guess. Okay, that was the chess engine, but well, I wanted to have a square to put my bishop on, and it didn't look like the light squared bishop had a lot of squares out in this direction, but he played e6 immediately, so well, that gives my bishop something to do at least. So I grab the pawn, he takes, and I take back. Let's see, what's his best? It says knight back to d2 is best. Anyway, he took the bishop, and I could take his queen here, but well, I took the knight first. I guess that's an okay way of playing it. I didn't realize at this point that I was losing my my e-pawn, but there's an interesting tactic coming up. So I won a pawn, and then he got a pawn back, and we have a position where I have 2 rooks and a knight, he has 2 rooks and a bishop. I have a majority on the queen side, he has a majority on the king side. All these things are about even. The thing that makes this a good position for me is the fact that he hasn't completed his development, and if I'm active here, I actually have quite a strong edge. So it was a real mistake for him to grab that pawn. He needed to he needed to develop his knight next to try and stay on the game. So I should win the game from here. And I play the right move to start with. I play bishop to c5. And now if the engine is recommending knight to d2, but then that just gives up the pawn. He played instead the move rook e2. And if you want to treat this as a tactical puzzle, what is my response after rook e2, and why does it work? Okay, I'm going to give the answer away now. Pause the video if you want some time to think about it. He did play rook e2, and now I can just grab this pawn. I didn't realize this. I thought, you know, he just, I didn't play that. I thought he just takes it back, and, you know, I'm just giving up the exchange. Say if I do this, he's just up a piece here, even though he's undeveloped. I've given up a piece for a pawn. So I didn't see a whole lot coming out of that, but of course I don't have to keep taking. What I have here is the move rook to f8, attacking the pinned piece. And so the bishop has pinned the rook, this guy is attacking it, and his only pieces that could defend it are over here, and they're not in a position to defend because of his lack of development. So that's a good example of how this lack of development can be a persistent issue even late in the game. We've eliminated almost all the pieces, but the remaining pieces that white was left with were undeveloped, and I could have taken advantage of it. So anyway, I played the move bishop c5, which was correct. He played rook e2, and then I didn't see this idea, take, and then bring the rook over, which is a shame. That's the kind of thing actually I should be able to see in a blitz game. Anyway, I played an okay move, but not winning. And now we're in the range of about even. And so my opponent is still in the game. He trades rooks. I take back, you know, and I do have this mate threat on the back rank once again, but now he has time to develop. He could, oh, he played king f2. I guess that's more accurate. If he just develops the knight, I can bring my rook into the second rank there and maybe win some material. So, yeah, I would be attacking the knight. I'd be attacking the f-pawn, so I'd at least pick up a pawn there. So he plays king f1, the most accurate move there, and I'm trying to develop my pieces, but I kind of lose the thread. Cancel that. I went to e5. Yeah, I couldn't find any particular targets, and now he's got time to develop. Let's see, what was the most accurate move here? Rook to f8, piling up on this pawn, but he can just play f3. But I guess I should have done that anyway, or d4. Anyway, yeah, I no longer have a big active plan and no way to take advantage of his development. His lack of development. He's going to be able to get his pieces out, and so it's a game. It's maybe slight edge to black. But anyway, as I play on, I sort of fall into a worse position after a few moves. So he plays this part well. My opponent does. Let's see. I start pushing my pawns forward. He goes rook to d1, attacking my pawn. I defend it. Knight to d4. He gets his pieces well posted. That's a good square. I drop back to f6. Rook to d3. You see, it stays in the range of about even for a long time, and I start trying to bring my king into the game. He goes king e2. And right now, yeah, my next move is a mistake. There's various ways to stay in the game. H5 or A5 and H5 are computer suggestions pushing these pawns. Also, A5 over here has the idea, I think, of stopping the B4 move. Now I was thinking I wanted to bring my king over here to support these pawns and free up my pieces to be more mobile. They seem kind of tied up at the moment. But, well, I guess this just puts my king on the wrong side of the board. You see it instantly switches, maybe just because of this one tactic. Rook to h3, attacking my h-pawn. And, well, the h-pawn comes forward. And then, this is a cool tactic. So I totally missed this. He takes the pawn because of where I put my king. So, let's see, he didn't take right away. Oh, I played bishop takes d4, but the tactic is, just to show it, after I take, he has this check, forking my king and my rook. So it was just because of that sequence that I went from a even position, maybe with a slight edge, to a losing position. And it's all because of the unfortunate placement of the king on e7. Like I said, I wanted to get over to the queen side. Let's see, if I had played king to e8, I want to explore this just a little bit. Yeah, okay, so it still stays in the range of about even. Yeah, so it's strictly about that tactic that loses a pawn. And it seems that once my king is on e7, there's no way to stop this. He attacks the h-pawn, and the only way to save it, even for a moment, is to move it forward, and then he can just take it. I tried taking the knight first. It doesn't matter whether I take the rook or the knight. He can still exchange out. He throws in this check. King d6. Cancel that. Yeah, king d6. I come over here to defend these pawns. But now he's just got a winning pawn majority over here on the king side, and I don't have any way to really stop it. Let's see. He played c takes d4, getting his material back. I mean, I have a queen side pawn majority, so I can play, but it seems harder for me to get this going. I start with c5, trying to get some things happening over here. What's the best? Rook to f4 or g4? Okay, anyway, so it seems like just trying to stand still and hold on to things is a better strategy than trying to push my queenside pawns forward. He played rook b7, and I can just come over here and defend this pawn. He went rook to g7, go rook f5 defending, and then he goes g4 kicking my rook. So I'm going to lose another pawn here. I think, yeah, so that's the problem with my strategy. If we go back to this point here, where I played c5, if I were to play rook to f4 here, I can still check. Of course, the best I can hope for king d7 is, I mean, if I get a draw, that's a good result from this position. So I guess I'll just allow him to check me and go back and forth here. And he comes forward king e3. How about if he just tries to kick the rook away with g3? Then rook takes d4. Oh, I'm threatening to take his d-pawn. So king here. Rook to g4, hitting his g-pawn, provoking g3. Interesting way to play. White still has an advantage, but I guess this is a stiffer defense. Okay, so after c5, let's go forward a few moves. He comes over here and attacks my pawns. I defend him. He attacks my rook, and I counterattack the d-pawn, but trades it off with tempo and then grabs my g-pawn. So I didn't win a pawn, and so now I'm just down 2 pawns. He's got 3 pawns against none over here, and I have 3 against 2 over here. Now I do have a passed pawn, so I try for counterplay, but I can't seem to get anything going, and he maintains his edge all the way through the rest of the game. So anyway, interesting game. And let's get to the final position right here, g7. Yeah, I gave up here. But clearly he's on the edge of queening. And in fact, there's the mate in 6, according to the chess engine, which is entirely believable. These 2 pawns are quite a formidable looking duo there. Okay, so anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this. Leave any comments you have in the section below, and I will see you again soon. Bye.